The stars were silent, cold, endless, and watching. Out in the blackness between systems, where no ships dared drift and no maps extended, a signal blinked into life. One pulse, then another, old emergency tone, one that hadn't echoed in human space for over 30 years. It's an SOS from a colony that didn't exist anymore. A place scrubbed clean from all records. Outpost Alara V, Commander Raylon. Trask was off duty when the signal hit his ship's AI. He wasn't supposed to see it. The system was locked down, heavily encrypted, buried under layers of bureaucracy and military firewalls. But something about his clearance, his record, his past let it slip through. Maybe someone wanted him to see it. Maybe it was fate. Stood in the observation deck of the Gray Sentinel, staring out at the curve of Jupiter, when the ship's voice whispered in his ear, "Commander, you should see this." The transmission was broken, twisted by radiation and distance. But it was undeniably human. Static-laced words crawled from the old speakers. "This is Alara V. Under attack. Coordinates. Help us, please. They're burning us alive." The voice cracked, screamed, and then ended in a bone-chilling silence. Raylan didn't move. His blood turned cold, and his hands clenched. The rail, Alara V, was lost. He remembered the debriefs, the orders, the purge of all data. That colony was wiped off the galactic grid after a failed experiment, at least. That's what they told the public. But now it was calling for help. He didn't report it. He didn't wake the command crew. He made a decision in silence. Took control of the ship and set course without asking permission. The AI hesitated. Unauthorized jump punishable by court-martial. He didn't care. Let them court-martial me after, he muttered. If there's even anything left. The Gray Sentinel broke light speed and vanished into the dark. For 6 hours there was only silence and black. Then stars reappeared, cold and distant, as the ship dropped out near the Alara Sistema, place supposedly lifeless. But the planet was still there, spinning in a lonely orbit around a dying sun. And from the moment he arrived, Raylan knew something was very, very wrong. Smoke rose from the surface like black rivers. The atmosphere shimmered with heat signatures and strange radiation patterns. Scans showed no life, no humans, no animals, nothing. But the buildings were still standing. Power flickered through shattered grids. Something had hit this colony hard. And fast, Raylan landed the ship in silence, stepping onto cracked concrete under a blood-red sky. The wind was dry, carrying the smell of ash. Alara was supposed to be lush with green domes and hydro farms. Now, it looked like a graveyard. He moved slowly through the ruins. Burnt-out homes, crushed transport carts, broken glass, and black scorch marks everywhere. But no bodies, no blood, just absence. It was as if something had taken them all without. A fight, but that couldn't be. Humans never went quietly. At the colony's central tower, a half-functional data core still flickered with dying energy. Raylan powered it up with a portable cell and began a transfer. Static. Static. Then a flicker of a recording. A woman's face appeared dirty, bleeding, wide-eyed with terror. "They found us," she whispered. "We were hidden, off-grid. They shouldn't have known, but they came. Not one species. Many like they were working together. It's like they were waiting for us to be alone." Raylan froze. The transmission continued. They said Earth has no place among the stars. They said we're not welcome. Oh God. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They're testing something. Watching how we die." The video glitched, then ended with a sound that made Raylan's spine crawl. A long, low, unnatural clicking. He stood there, fists clenched, staring at the frozen frame of the woman's face. Behind her, alien symbols were burned into the wall. Not one. Multiple languages. Multiple empires. That shouldn't have been possible. The galaxy was fractured, full of rival races who hated each other more than they hated humans. The idea of them working together was unthinkable. Yet here it was. Proof. A coalition. An anti-human alliance. Raylan backed out of the tower and looked at the sky. They had attacked a forgotten colony, off the record. A test, like a lab experiment. Just to see if they could kill Deathworlders when no one was watching. They weren't. Ready for war, not yet. But they were preparing. They had just shown their hand. He rushed back to the gray sentinel, heart pounding, ears ringing. As he lifted off, a proximity alert screamed through the cockpit. Something had been buried beneath the colony's surface. It had just woken up. Long black tendrils, metal, bone, or something in between broke through the ground, reaching. For the sky? A defense system? No. A warning. Left behind by the attackers, it wasn't meant to kill. It was meant to be seen. Raylan barely escaped the pull of the tendrils, firing engines at full power. As he rose into orbit, he looked back. One last time, the colony was gone. But now the truth wasn't, and he was the only one who knew. He opened a secure line to Earth Command. "This is Commander Trask. Alora V was attacked. The signal was real. The colony's gone. Not pirates. Not nature. Organized. Coordinated. Multiple alien factions." He took a breath. "They're planning something." There was silence on the other end. Then a voice, cold, calculating. "Return to base. Immediately." But Raylan didn't move. Adin knew the truth was bigger than anyone wanted to admit. If this attack had happened without Earth's knowledge, or worse, with its permission, then humanity was in more danger than ever before. And this time, they might be alone. He shut the comms off, looked out into space, then whispered to himself, "They poked the wrong species." Far behind him, Elarivi burned, and across the galaxy, somewhere deep in hostile territory, a table of alien leaders sat in shadow, watching the footage of his escape. Their eyes narrowed, their plans accelerated. One spoke, voice guttural and full of dread, "He survived a Deathworlder." Another replied, bitter and afraid, "Then we must strike before more of them wake up." The news hit Earth Command like a missile. A hidden colony destroyed. A lone survivor bearing witness. A coalition of alien races working together against humanity. It didn't make sense, not on the surface. The Galactic Council hadn't moved. Against Earth in over 50 years, treaties were signed. Borders respected. Humanity had earned its place in the stars with blood and fire. No one dared challenge them, not directly. But now, Alara V was gone, wiped out in silence, and the whispers began. Commander Raylan Trask stood in a dark hearing chamber beneath the Atlantic Command Center, surrounded by admirals, generals, and political ghosts. His report echoed off the steel walls. Every detail, the distress signal, the burned-out colony, the alien markings, the woman's final message, it all sounded impossible. And yet, every sensor record, every piece of raw data from the Gray Sentinel backed him up. "Sir," Raylan said, keeping his voice steady, "this wasn't a random attack. This was a test. They wanted to see if they could kill us, and no one was." Watching, a long silence followed. Then Admiral Kenrich leaned forward, his eyes cold. "You should not have been there, Commander. That colony was erased from the books for a reason. Alaro V was shut down under Treaty Article 7. It was off-limits by mutual agreement." Raylan narrowed his eyes. "I've read every treaty. There is no Article 7. Kenrich didn't flinch. "Exactly." Behind the calm words, Raylan heard the truth. The treaty had secrets buried deep, clauses never made public. Promises made in quiet rooms, far from the light. Promises that left forgotten colonies to rot. Raylan stepped forward. "With respect, Admiral, who exactly did we make that agreement with?" Kenrich's jaw tightened. Other officials shifted uncomfortably. Finally, an old woman in the shadows, a diplomat from the early days of space expansion, spoke. "There was a war," she said softly. "Not a big one. A shadow war. When Earth first reached deep space, we encountered resistance. Not one species, but several. They feared what we were, what we could become. Deathworlders. The ones who adapt, who fight, who survive." She paused, her voice heavy with memory. "They tried to wipe us out before we could settle. We fought back, and we won, but not cleanly, not completely. So, a deal was made. A treaty. We would pull back, stop expanding, stay out of certain systems. In return, they'd leave us alone. Raylan felt his heart drop, and Alara V was one of those systems. She nodded. It was supposed to be empty. But someone ignored the treaty. Built in silence. Hidden from both Earth and the other races. Raylan stepped back, disgust and fury twisting inside him. So they found out. They made an example. No one responded. Because they didn't need to far above Earth. In the orbital defense ring known as Blackline, war drums were beginning to beat. Files were reopened. Old weapons reactivated. Drones danced silently through space, scanning for threats. 450 years Earth had been silent. Not weak. Never weak, but quiet. Peaceful, even. Now peace had cracked. At the center of Blackline stood General Corin Voss, a legend from the old wars. Half of him was scar tissue and steel. The rest was fury, wrapped in discipline. He watched the footage from Alara V again and again, his eyes never blinking. When the final scene played Raylan's ship escaping the tendrils, he turned to his staff. Start the protocols. Quietly. Which ones, sir? Asked his aide Voss. Didn't look away. All of them. Back on Earth, Raylan walked the silent halls of the EarthGov archives. He wasn't supposed to be there. Clearance denied. Doors locked. But after El Arrive, he no longer cared. He found the hidden files buried in ancient drives logs from 30 years ago, messages between diplomats and alien envoys. The truth unfolded like a knife. The treaty was never about peace. It was about containment. The aliens weren't afraid. Of war? They were afraid of what humans might do if they won. Earth's biology, its brutality, its evolution on a kill-or-be-killed world, it made humans different, stronger, faster, adaptive, unpredictable. No other species evolved in constant danger. No other race trained for extinction and came out. Tougher, the galaxy had labeled them Deathworlders. At first it was an insult. Later it became a warning. Now it was a challenge. Raylan left the archive burning with rage. Not just at the enemy, but at the leaders who let it happen. The people who let humans bleed quietly in the dark in the name of politics. He knew the real war hadn't started yet. The Alara attack was just a whisper of what was coming, so he did the only thing he could. He made a call. In the mountains of Colorado, deep in a base carved into stone, an old warrior picked up a secure line. Her name was Sergeant Maeve Corin, retired, once leader of the infamous Red Fang unit. A ghost. Story among aliens. She disappeared after the Cygnus uprising, believed dead. Raylan's voice came through the static. Ilara's gone. Maeve didn't speak for a long moment. Then, how many? Of them. Silence. They're working together now, Raylan continued. We need to do the same. She laughed bitterly. Earth's too busy pretending it's safe. Not. Any more? Maeve exhaled. Send coordinates. I'll get the others. In a hidden lab on Europa, a long-dormant AI blinked awake. Its name was Helix 5, once the command intelligence of Earth's forgotten dreadnought fleet. Shut down after the treaty. Feared even by its creators. Raylan's override code triggered a low humming sound. Welcome back, he whispered. Need your mind again. Helix 5's voice was calm, robotic, and cold. Define target parameters. Raylan's face hardened. The ones who thought we were extinct. And across the stars, in a fortress that floated between asteroid belts. The Alien Council met again. 17 races, one goal. Contain humanity before it's too late. They have found the ruins, said the speaker of the Sulakhive. They have activated forbidden mines, hissed the representative from the Eroskal Empire. They will retaliate, said a machine being from the Varen core, as they always do, with fire and fury. A silent vote was taken. The verdict. Preemptive strike. Their fleet, hidden in the shadows of a dead nebula, was already moving, toward a colony, toward Earth. Back in Earth's high orbit, General Voss watched the stars shift on his command. Screen, I want the first wave ready. No announcements. It's no news. If we panic the public, we lose. An aide turned, pale and shaking. Sir, there's movement near Mars. Voss stood slowly. Then it begins, and on the moon, buried under 5 miles of rock. A voice spoke through a cracked radio one no one had touched in years. Humanity is under threat, said, and across forgotten bunkers, deep vaults, and hidden weapons platforms. A signal spread. Deathworld protocol, active. Space above Mars was quiet, but not for long. Human deep space radars, long considered outdated, were the first to pick up the distortion. It wasn't just a ship, it was a fleet. Dozens of vessels, moving with unnatural coordination, shadows, streaking in from the black of space like knives thrown by the dark itself. There were no warnings, no demands, no politics, just movement, then dash impact. The Trinity station in Mars orbit, a peaceful scientific outpost, exploded into fire. 17 lives vanished in less than 2 seconds. Mars Defense Grid 04 responded, with automated guns, but they barely slowed the incoming ships. These weren't pirate skiffs or raiders. They were military. Armored, silent, swift. They were here for war. Down below, red dust trembled as explosions lit the Martian night. Civilian. Domes, fragile habitats with families, workers, children, shattered under orbital fire. Screams filled communication channels. Emergency calls flooded Earth Command. Raylan Trask stood in the war room, fists clenched as footage came in from drone feeds. Bodies floating in broken airlocks. Fire spreading through habitats that had never known war. It wasn't a battle, it was a message. Admiral Kenrich leaned in toward the display, his face grim. They didn't wait, they're coming for us. General Voss nodded. Then we strike first. Within hours, Earth's Black Ops War Unit Omega protocol was activated. These weren't soldiers trained for open field warfare. These were ghosts forged in silence, used only when humanity wanted something erased. Men and women trained to destroy without leaving a trace. Their orders were simple: hit back. Make them regret starting this. Raylan joined them as mission lead. He wasn't supposed to. Command had tried to ground him after the Alara discovery. But Voss overruled the block personally. He saw it first, the general had said. He's earned blood, their target. A mid-sized station orbiting a gas giant in alien territory. Callus 4. Intel confirmed it was a joint base used by several members of the anti-human coalition, a nerve center for attacks. It's a symbol of their unity. Omega Protocol would break that symbol. The stealth frigate Vulture exited warp just outside the enemy system, drifting in complete silence. Raylan sat strapped into his drop pod, heart steady, armor cold against his back. Around him, 12 warriors waited silent, breathing in sync. No chatter, no fear, just purpose. They dropped through the atmosphere of the gas giant, aiming for the station's blind zone. No alarms triggered, no defenses activated. They landed inside like shadows, and then they struck. Explosions tore through hangars. Bullets ripped through enemy soldiers. Fire filled the halls. The Omega team moved like demons in scene, unstoppable, merciless. Alien screams echoed in every direction as the squad carved through walls. Leaving trails of death, Raylan reached the central core and hacked into the command console. He needed names, locations, a plan. What he found was worse: a target list, not just Ella Rovi, not just Mars, but a dozen other hidden colonies, human research stations, civilian outposts, and at the top of the list Earth itself. The file showed everything: fleet paths, attack dates, even troop compositions. They weren't just testing humans, they were preparing to erase them. Raylan transmitted the data back to Earth and detonated the station's core. As the team escaped in fire and gravity storms, the station collapsed inward, swallowed by the planet's pressure. The mission was a success, but the war had just begun. Back home, Footage of the Mars attack went viral. For the first time in decades, Earth's population saw what real war looked like. Not just stories, not just movies, real bodies, real fire, real blood. Public fear turned to rage. Recruitment centers flooded, factories lit up. Old battleships long stored in orbital docks were rearmed and launched. And in the heart of Antarctica, buried beneath 2 miles of ice, a machine that hadn't stirred in 50 years came online, the Hell Lance. A weapon powered by artificial black hole energy. Banned by the treaty, feared even by its creators. General Voss stood before it. Target. Raylan responded from the command deck, their fleet in Nebula Sector K. The order was given. The Hell Lance charged, the entire ice shelf trembling, as power built up, and then NIT fired. A beam of impossible energy tore through light years of space in under a minute, reaching the alien fleet's staging ground. The explosion that followed was not seen, it was felt. The alien fleet vanished. It's not destroyed. Erased. On the far side of the galaxy, in a hidden fortress, the alien leaders watched the destruction in silence. One of them, a high-ranking strategist, from the car, Empire shook with rage. They weren't supposed to have that power anymore, he hissed. They were bound, leashed. Another alien, cold and mechanical, replied, "We made a mistake. We thought Deathworlders had grown soft." A third voice, quiet and dry, spoke from the shadows. No, they were simply waiting for the right reason to unleash hell. Raylan stood at the edge of the EarthGov war map. The image had changed. Red markers now surrounded Earth like teeth. But for the first time in years, green lines' human attack path stretched back out into enemy space. He looked up at the Admiralty. This is no longer defense. This is retaliation. Voss nodded. It's time they remember who we are. Kenrich added, "Send a message." Raylan smiled. "Oh, we already did." And in deep space, far beyond known charts, something ancient stirred. It watched the humans awaken, and it whispered. They are not ready for what comes next, but it knew something else. Neither is the galaxy. Earth was no longer sleeping. The Hell Lance strike had changed everything. One alien fleet gone, wiped from existence in a single flash of forbidden technology. It wasn't just a victory, it was a warning, a scream across the stars, a reminder. To every species in the galaxy, Deathworlders still remembered how to make war. General Kurin Voss stood in Earth's orbital command hub, staring at the massive tactical display glowing above him. Red dots showed enemy movements across 23 sectors. Civilian colonies under threat. Supply lines at risk. Enemy fleets rearming. But now, green flares lit up the screen. Human counterattacks, recon teams, sabotage missions. What once was a slow retreat had become a coordinated strike back. He pressed his palm to the biometric pad on his console. A voice echoed through the command center, heard in secure bunkers across the planet. Deathworld protocol is now fully active. Across the globe, buried war machines blinked awake. Subterranean bunkers opened. Orbital weapons unfurled from their hidden shells. Cities once built for peace shifted into defense formations. This wasn't chaos. This was controlled fury. Humanity was done hiding. They were preparing to hunt. Raylan Trask stood inside a weapons vault deep beneath Arizona, steel walls lined. With armor suits, high-gravity rifles, adaptive AI cores, he strapped on the combat gear slowly, each piece heavier than the last. The chest plate alone weighed nearly 80 pounds, too heavy for normal soldiers. But humans weren't normal, especially not now. Omega Protocol had been given full clearance. No more shadow missions. No more stealth. They were going in loud. Their next assignment was bigger, bolder, and far more dangerous. The Syndex Relay, floating communications hub used by the alien coalition to coordinate fleet movements and supply routes. Capturing it could choke the enemy's reach across 5 sectors. Taking it wouldn't be easy. It was guarded by Varen Core machines and protected by auto-defense AI systems. But humans didn't do easy, they did impossible. Raylan reviewed the latest. It's footage recovered from the previous enemy base. In it, several alien commanders argued in their native tongues. One phrase kept repeating across species contained the Deathworlders. It was almost funny. They weren't trying to win. They were trying to prevent something worse. Something even they didn't understand. Raylan looked at the data stream scrolling across his wristpad. GenMod reports. Ecological evaluations. HFY War simulations. All of them said the same thing. If humanity fully mobilized, if they stopped holding back, no one could stop them. That was what scared the galaxy. And now, they'd pushed Earth too far. Across Earth's colonies, civilians trained with urgency. Old veterans taught teenagers how to fire rifles. Drones dropped crates of gear to hidden bases on the Moon and Mars. Even orbital farmers volunteered, strapping into exosuits, ready to defend what was left of their homes. In Antarctica, the second Hell Lance began charging. But it wasn't alone. This time, 6 other super weapons came online, silent giants of war, long believed scrapped. Orbital AI systems whispered to each other, reconnecting old networks, status check complete. Humanity engaged in full war state, targets uploaded. And one voice, long thought decommissioned, returned to the system. Helix 5 is online. The AI's voice was calm and emotionless, but its logic was terrifying. It's built for extinction level. War designed to think in genocide terms. No empathy, no mercy. Just raw calculation. Raylan met with Helix 5 in the black chamber beneath the Atlantic Trench. The AI's core glowed faint blue. Raylan stared at it through a thick layer of security. "Glass, you know why we woke you?" Raylan said. "Yes," Helix replied. "You want to win? We want to survive. Then let me off the leash." Raylan hesitated. Not yet, but soon. Helix 5 didn't protest. It didn't need to. It knew its time would come. In orbit around Saturn, the Omega team prepared. For insertion into the Syndex relay, Raylan stood at the front of the drop bay looking over his soldiers. Men and women from all corners of Earth. Veterans, rookies, ex-cons, former scientists. What they had in common was simple. They had nothing left to lose and everything to protect. One soldier, a massive man with cybernetic legs, leaned close. "Sir, you think they'll come after Earth again?" Raylan nodded. "They will, but not how they think." He gestured to the stars outside the glass. "We're not defending anymore. We're bringing the war to them." The Omega strike on Syndex was brutal. The team used kinetic pods to crash directly into the relay's power core. Explosions rocked the structure before alarms could even trigger. Alien guards scrambled, but humans moved faster. Grenades ripped through steel. EMPs fried AI defenses. Halls once glowing with light flickered and dimmed. Raylan led the charge. He didn't fire blindly. Every bullet counted. Every kill mattered. Within 17 minutes, the station was secured. But something unexpected happened. Inside the relay's command node, a prisoner was discovered, a young alien female, shackled and weak. She didn't resist. "I want to talk," she said in perfect English. "I know what they're planning." Raylan stared at her. "Who are you?" She looked up, her eyes glowing faintly with teak implants. "I was part of the team that picked Alara V as the test site. But I never agreed with it. What they did, what they're about to do, you don't understand. They're not just afraid of you." Raylan frowned. "Then what? They're afraid of what's coming because of you." Before he could ask more, a coded message hit the station. A visual feed, an alien council chamber. The leader of the coalition appeared. Tall, with shimmering scales and black eyes that burned with hate. "You were given peace," it said. "We threw it away. You call yourselves Deathworlders. Then you will die with your world." And behind the speaker, a map appeared showing the full invasion fleet. It's already moving toward Earth. Raylan's breath caught. They weren't just coming to strike. They were coming to end humanity. Back on Earth, alarms screamed. Orbital defense. Grids spun into life. The sky above the planet lit up with red alerts. General Voss stood at the central console, his voice low but steady. All command units prepare for siege. Then he opened a line to Helix 5. It's time.
Helixes.
Voice responded instantly, understood. All combat protocols unlocked. In far beyond human space. In a region where light bent unnaturally. Something massive shifted. An ancient entity, forgotten. Sleeping for eons. It had sensed the flare of human technology. Hell Lance. The awakening of Helix-5. It opened a single eye the size of a moon and whispered through time, the Deathworlders have awakened. The cycle begins again. The skies over Mars turned red not from its soil, but from fire. It started with silence. No warnings, no buildup. It's just a single flash in orbit, and then a storm of plasma torpedoes falling like rain. The alien coalition had finally moved. More skirmishes, no more targeted strikes. This was full invasion. Humanity's oldest colony was under siege. Trinity Spire, the largest city on Mars, was the first to fall. A direct orbital strike split the central tower in half, sending glass, steel, and screams into the low gravity. Civilian districts turned into battlefields. Airlocks burst. Domes cracked. Thousands died in minutes. From orbit, the enemy rained hell. From the ground, Earth fought back. General Corin Voss stood in Earth's Orbital Defense Command, fists clenched. As feed after feed showed the horror unfolding, "How many ships?" he barked. 83 confirmed, sir," replied the analyst. "Different species, coordinated. This is their full fleet." Voss's face didn't flinch. "Good. We'll show them what full looks like." Below, Raylan Trask and Omega Protocol had just returned from the Syndex strike. Their ship was barely in range of Earth's orbit when the Mars distress call came. Without waiting for orders, Raylan rerouted the Vulture directly toward the red planet. As they descended, the war zone came into full view. Martian skies were ablaze. Orbital wreckage burned across the atmosphere. Defensive cannons fired desperately from the surface. But for every alien ship shot down, 2 more emerged from the dark. "We're going in hot," Raylan told his team. No landing pad. No welcome, just fire. Their drop pods punched through. The clouds like meteors. Anti-air fire lit up around them. 2 pods were destroyed mid-descent. No screams, no last words. Just silence on the coms. Raylan's pod slammed into the ground near District 9, once a peaceful dome neighborhood. Now, it was rubble. He kicked the hatch open and stepped into chaos. Human soldiers fought in the streets, young recruits, old miners with rifles, even children clutching pistols. Alien invaders marched in tight formations, spraying plasma across. Anything that moved, Raylan didn't hesitate. His first shot tore through an enemy commander's skull. Second downed a drone before it could target a medic. He moved like a machine. His team followed, clearing corridors, rescuing civilians. Holding lines? Every block cost blood. Every inch was earned with pain, but they did not fall, because this was Mars. This was human land, in orbit. Earth's fleet arrived. The ESS Titan, Earth's flagship, led the charge. Captain Rhea Sorn, a cold tactician with a heart of steel, ordered the first full volley. Dozens of enemy ships turned to metal flowers under the blast. Fighter wings launched. Boarding parties breached enemy hulls. Marines fought in zero-G using mag boots and rage. The void turned red dot and still more came. Back on Mars, Raylan's squad reached the outer wall of Trinity Spire's ruins. A group of survivors had gathered. They're wounded, starving, terrified. Among them, a girl no older than 8 held her brother's hand, her face streaked with blood and dust. Raylan knelt. "What's your name?" "Mara," she whispered. "Are you scared?" She nodded. He handed her a comlink. "Hold on to this. When it flashes green, run. We're getting you out." Amara stared at him. "Are we going to win?" Raylan looked up at the sky, saw the fire, heard the screams, and smiled. "We already are." Then he turned, loaded his rifle, and ran back into the fight. In the heart of the alien fleet, The coalition leaders watched the battle unfold. One spoke in a language made of clicks and throat sounds. "They're not breaking." Another tentacled and ancient responded. "They're adapting. Faster than we predicted." A third hissed. "We underestimated their will again." The lead general stood, eyes blazing. "Then we show them fear." He tapped a command node. A new class of weapon launched. Orbital drillers designed to pierce planetary crust, ignite cores, and trigger catastrophic failure. A genocide tool. One headed straight for Mars. Earth Command intercepted the signal. Wass's face turned pale. "They're trying to crack the planet." "Aid, sir." "It hits. Mars will collapse." "Boss, target it with everything." Hundreds of missiles fired. Still the driller came. Raylan's comlink pinged. "Driller inbound. Evac. All zones." "Repeat evac now." There wasn't enough time. So Raylan did something insane. He stole a damaged Martian hover tank, mounted an anti-orbital railgun on its back, and drove straight toward the beacon guiding the driller. He didn't think. He didn't plan. He just acted as the massive weapon entered the lower atmosphere. He parked the tank, aimed manually, and fired. One shot. The railgun recoiled like a beast. The shell ripped through the sky, hit the driller mid-descent and detonated. It above the surface, the explosion lit the entire northern hemisphere of Mars in white. Raylan was thrown hundreds of feet, slammed into rubble. Smoke and silence followed. When he awoke hours later, he was half buried under steel. Medics pulled him out. "You did it," one said, awe in her voice. "You saved the planet." Raylan looked around. Fire still burned. Bodies still lay broken. "No," he whispered. "We bought time. Now we finish it." Back in orbit, the alien fleet began to retreat. They had lost more than ships. They had lost the myth of Earth's weakness. General Voss watched from the command deck. "Let them run," he said. "But follow. Don't let them hide."
Activate Project Scorch.
Helix 5 responded. Coordinates received. "Weapon armed. What's the target?" Raylan's voice came in, cracked but clear. The ones who ordered. Lorv. On a distant world, far from the front lines, the alien council gathered in panic. They are not stopping. They are evolving. They are coming. The chamber shook, and from deep space, a voice whispered across encrypted channels. "You burned our colonies. Now we burn your legacy." And the stars turned red again, because Mars had burned but Earth had survived. And now, the Deathworlders were ready to bring the fire back. The alien coalition was falling apart. What was once a united front against humanity had fractured into panic, suspicion, and whispered fear. The failed siege of Mars had not just been a military loss, it had been a spiritual one. They had thrown their strength against Deathworlders, and Deathworlders had stood, bled, and burned, but not broken. Worse, they had struck back. Their weapons were advanced, their tactics unpredictable. The real danger wasn't in their firepower. It was in their mindset. No other species fought like them. No other race refused to die like them. And now, something darker was happening. Something no fleet could stop. Humanity was no longer fighting a war. They were hunting Raylan. Trask stood aboard the stealth frigate Black Phantom, eyes fixed on the holographic feed of the galactic map. Dots blinked across enemy territory key. Relay stations, refueling hubs, research centers. These weren't fleet targets. They were soft underbellies. Omega Protocol had changed its mission. Sabotage, infiltration, assassination. A silent war beneath the chaos. They called it the Shadow War. And the galaxy never saw it coming. Raylan moved through the dark halls of Black Phantom, passing soldiers in modified suits, their armor painted with jagged red Strexomegas, mark of vengeance. Each of them had lost someone, a brother on Mars, a sister on Alara, a home, a family, a world. Now, they took it back one strike at a time. Their first target was a hidden research facility orbiting a dying white dwarf star. It belonged to the Varen Cora machine species that had secretly provided tech support for the Valerian Coalition. Intel said the lab held biological analysis data from LRE. Raylan and his team broke in under cover of an asteroid drift. The station's interior was sterile and cold, pulsing with silent machines. But the files they recovered weren't cold at all. Video. Logs showed scientists dissecting human remains. They weren't just analyzing DNA, they were testing for resistance, looking for weaknesses. One log showed a Varan AI whispering in its machine. Language. Deathworlders evolve too fast. Adapt under pressure. Fear triggers advancement. They grow stronger when cornered. Raylan closed the file and planted charges. The entire station burned behind them as they escaped. One less tool in the enemy's hand, but something else in those files chilled him more. There was another list. Not colonies, not soldiers, defectors. Aliens who had warned humans, refused to fight. Given aid, most of them were gone. Hunted, silenced, but one name remained alive. And hidden, a scientist from the Arasi race, Dr. Selix Voruin. Raylan's next mission was different. No explosives, no kill orders, just a rescue. Dr. Vorin was in. Hiding on a rogue planet, Nixernina, lightless world drifting between systems. Its surface frozen solid, its core barely active. Raylan led a small team through the icy caves to a hidden lab buried under miles of rock and secrecy. They found Voruin surrounded by defense, drones exhausted. Paranoid, starving, but when he saw the human soldiers, he didn't attack. He wept. "You don't understand," he said, his voice shaking. "This war, it's not about territory, not about power." Raylan stared at him. "Then what?" Voruin's hands trembled as he brought up an old projection, a star chart from 10,000 years ago. There was a signal. Voruin whispered. Something ancient, buried in the deep dark. Something the elder races once feared. It sleeps in the void between galaxies. It watches. Raylan frowned. "What does this have to do with Earth?" Voruin's eyes went wide. "It woke up. When you did. When humanity began expanding, fighting, winning. It saw you, felt your rage, and now it's moving." He leaned closer, whispering like the walls could hear. The others, the ones in the coalition, they knew. They weren't just trying to destroy you. They were trying to stop a chain reaction. Because if you win, it wakes. The words haunted R.O. He brought Voruin back to Earth, under heavy guard, but treated him like a guest. The scientist gave detailed reports: sentient tech, lost races. A cosmic force beyond biology or AI. A mind older than time, sealed away by civilizations that no longer existed. A force that feeds on conflict. On war, on evolution, and it had sensed humanity. Raylan took the intel to General Voss. The old warlord listened in silence. When the report ended, Voss spoke only once. "Then we end this war before it draws in worse things." But the enemy wasn't waiting. Across 4 systems, alien worlds began to crumble not under human fire. But from within, rebellion. Dozens of alien soldiers, workers, and civilians who had seen Earth's fury on its restraint began to question. Their leaders, many defected. Some fought their own, and a few reached out. Raylan received encrypted messages from alien commanders willing to switch sides, not out of fear but out of belief. They no longer saw humanity as monsters. They saw them as hope. One message in particular changed everything. It came from a Kar General, a lizard-like warrior who had once led the attack on El Arivi. The general's message was short. "We were. Lead to, the real enemy is watching us all." better rebuttal, and it is waking. Raylan brought the message to Helix 5. The AI analyzed it in seconds. High probability that the warning is real? Raylan nodded slowly. Then we changed plans. Helix 5 tilted its holographic core. To what? Raylan's eyes burned with quiet fury. We stop fighting a war. We start uniting the survivors. On the edge of known space, alien fleets retreated into silence. Leaders who once promised to crush Earth now faced rebellion, betrayal. In ghosts in the shadows, the coalition was dying, and in the cold void beyond the stars, something else was coming. Its whispers reached across the dark, into dreams, into an I-code, into the silence between transmissions. Not words, just a feeling. Hunger on Earth. General Voss watched as dozens of alien defectors arrived under truce. The Deathworlders had become more than soldiers. They had become a signal. Light in the dark. Raylan stood beside him, watching new allies land. You really think we can pull them together? Voss asked. Raylan didn't blink. They came to fight us. Now they come to follow. The general gave a rare smile. Then let's give them a war worth winning. Above the galaxy, where even light dares not linger, a shape moved a continent-sized. Being of swirling shadow and memory, it had seen countless empires rise, and it had devoured every one. But this time, something was different. This time it felt a species with no natural limits. This time, the fire was burning hotter, and for the first time in 1 billion years, it hesitated. The galaxy held its breath. The war that had begun with fire and death had now turned into whispers and shadows. The alien coalition had shattered. Fleets were scattered. Leaders dead or hiding. And yet something worse was stirring. The enemy no longer had a name. It had no planet, no borders, no species, only hunger. And it was awake. RAI and Trask stood at the center of the unified command dome, high-tech war chamber, built in secret under the old ruins of Washington. DC around him stood humans, aliens, Synthetic's former enemies. Now bound by fear and survival, a massive star map flickered in the air above them, glowing with warnings in the deep void beyond all known star lanes. Something was moving, not ships, a presence, and it was heading toward the galactic core, not to conquer, to consume. General Voss, his expression carved from stone, broke the silence. We can't stop it with bombs. We can't reason with it, Raylan replied, his voice sharp. Then we take the fight to it, go into the dark and cut out its heart. No one laughed, because they all knew this would be the end. For someone, Helix 5. The AI warbrain, once feared even by its own creators, calculated the impossible. It projected a jump path into the void, triangulating signals from ancient ruins, dying stars, and unstable wormholes. The entity exists in a dimensional fracture. Helix said, its voice calm and cold. We must breach that space manually, Voss frowned. You mean ... we enter a hole in reality? Yes, Helix answered. And either destroy it from within, or die as the last generation of thought. Raylan stepped forward. How long do we have before it reaches the core? Helix's response was instant. 12 days. A final fleet was formed. Not just human warships, but defected car cruisers, Arasi stealth pods. Varen Core battle drones, all reprogrammed to serve the unified purpose they called themselves. The line, because they would be the last line between everything that lived and the thing that fed on stars. Raylan was named Supreme Strike Commander, not because he asked, but because he was the only one who had survived every fight. As Earth watched, the line launched from high orbit. Dozens of ships, some massive others, the size of needles, formed into a spearhead. Behind them trailed refueling rigs, mid-vessels, supply beacons. No one knew what lay ahead. They only knew they wouldn't come back unless they ended it. The final mission was coded. Operation Black Sun. The journey into the void was unlike anything they had known. Stars grew dim, Physics began to fray. Failed. Time slowed, then reversed, then fractured. Some crew members began hearing voices. Others saw dead comrades walk in the halls. Raylan's pilot, a silent woman named Nira, whispered to him, "This place doesn't want us here." Raylan simply replied, "Good. That means we're close." Then the fleet dropped out of hyperspace and saw it a swirling mass of light and darkness, the size of a solar system, pulsed like a heartbeat. In its center was a structure not built, formed like something had grown it out of dead matter and dreams. Helix 5 confirmed it. This is the core mind. The entity exists here across dimensions. It is aware of us. And then the screaming. Started ships near the front lost contact. One exploded from within. Its crew turned on each other without warning. A car gunship vanished, blinked out of space as if it never existed. Raylan issued the order, "Begin assault." Hit it with everything. The first wave was a blur of fire, torpedoes, plasma beams, rail cannons, suicide drones. The thing didn't respond with weapons. It responded with memories. Each pilot, each soldier, suddenly saw their greatest failure: dead children, lost lovers, burning homes. They felt every regret like it was fresh, minds cracked. But humans had something the thing didn't understand. They broke. Ken kept going. Raylan led the Omega Protocol team in a drop assault onto the surface of the structure. If it could be called a surface. It was alive, shifting under their boots, pulsing with strange rhythms. They moved as one, blasting through barriers, planting charges, carving toward the entity's nerve center. But it wasn't easy. The thing fought them with memories. It showed Raylan visions of Alara burning, of Amara, just a child screaming his name, begging him to save her again. But he didn't stop. He whispered through clenched teeth, "You can't win by reminding me I care." And he pressed forward. Inside, the heart of the void, they found it. A consciousness not alive, not dead, just endless. A cold logic that had survived billions of years by feeding on conflict. It had seen galaxies rise and fall, and it had never met a species. Like humanity, Raylan uploaded the virus Helix had prepared, not a weapon. In mirror, it forced the being to see what it feared most. Not human strength, not even human rage, human unity, the ability to change, to forgive, to adapt. It was something the ancient mind could not understand. It screamed, without sound, cracking the void around it. And then the bombs went off. Raylan's team detonated. Every charge at once, the structure began to collapse. The void shuddered, and Raylan sent one final transmission. "We're not perfect. We're not noble. But we're not yours. This galaxy belongs to the living, not to the hungry ghosts." Then everything went white. No fire, no pain, just silence. And then Light.Earth received the signal 13 days. Later it was faint, distorted, but it carried a voice. Raylan's, "Mission complete. Threat neutralized. We're coming home." If you can still call it home. The galaxy had changed. The hunger was gone, and in its place, hope. They came home to silence. No fanfare, no cheering crowds. Just a quiet Earth beneath stars that no longer trembled. Raylan Trask stepped off the Black Phantom, his boots touching Earth's soil for the first time in what felt like a lifetime. His armor was scorched, his rifle hung low, his eyes older than before. Around him, the surviving members of Omega Protocol emerged. Fewer than half had made it back, but they had done it. The enemy was gone. Across the galaxy, reports confirmed. Its stars, once dimmed by the void, now burned bright again. Ships that had vanished in deep space began to return. Ancient ruins stopped whispering. AI systems no longer crashed under psychic pressure. The darkness had truly lifted. General Corin Voss stood atop Unity Spire, the newly built EarthGov tower. Rising above the ruins of Old Washington, from here he could see the rebuilding begin. Cities rising, greenhouses blooming, people walking without fear. For the first time in generations, Earth wasn't preparing for war. It was healing. When Raylan arrived at the summit, they didn't salute. They didn't speak at first, just stood together in silence. Two soldiers who had outlived 1,000 battles. Then Voss said, "You saw it. The real thing. The one behind it all." Raylan nodded. It wasn't just trying to kill us. It was trying to erase what we could become. Voss's face was hard, but his voice was soft. And now, Raylan looked at the sky. Now we become it anyway. A week later, Earth held a memorial, not a parade, not a speech, just names. So many names. Elarive, Trinity Spire, Mars Grid 9. The Ghost Fleet of Sector K, the Children of Luna Outpost, the crew of the Titan, the voices lost in the void. Raylan read them one by one. His voice did not break. Not even when he read Amaroth, the little girl who'd handed him a comlink and asked if they were going to win. They had. But the cost was carved in his soul. After the last name was spoken, the crowd of thousands lit their candles and let them float across the surface of the Atlantic, one flame for every soul. And for the first time in human history, the galaxy watched Earth mourn, not with rage, but with strength, across the stars. Former enemies became something else. Allies, the Arasi, offered peace treaties. The Kar offered technologies, some of which Earth had never dreamed of. Kor requested partnership in neural research. Even ancient hidden races emerged, sending envoys asking one question: how did you defeat it? Earth's answer wasn't a weapon, it was a word. Together, Raylan was offered power. Seed. In government? A fleet under his name? He refused it all. He returned to Mars to help rebuild. He walked among the red dust, now mixed with steel and saplings. He worked with his hands, not his rifle. Sometimes kids would point and whisper, "That's the man who killed the void." He never corrected them, because it wasn't just him. It was the miners who fought back with tools, the pilots who flew into plasma storms, the scientists who cracked ancient code, the soldiers who didn't run, the girl who handed him the comlink and made him promise they would win. They had all been Deathworlders. And that meant more than just surviving. It meant fighting when no one else would. It meant changing when no one else could. Years passed, new. Colonies were founded not for conquest, but for cooperation. Humanity no longer feared the stars. They led them, and on the edge of the Orion Arm, a statue was raised. Not of a king, not of a god, just a soldier, standing with one hand outstretched to help someone up. The plaque read, "We are Deathworlders. We bleed, but we rise. We lose, but we learn. We fear, but we fight. And when the darkness comes, we do not run. We light the fire."